Good day, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm the head of product at DBVisit Software. And today I thought we could just have a quick demo of how our SQL Server solution works in the context of an application switchover. So DBVisit Standby Multiplatform is obviously a database disaster recovery solution. But of course, a database isn't much good all on its own. A database is typically used by an application. And ultimately, in a disaster scenario, what you're trying to do is you're trying to restore the application to working order, right? It's not so much about the database itself, it's about the database in combination with the application. So let's have a short demo about how you would go about doing that, about how do you not just switch over the database, but the application as well. So for demo purposes today, I've got a very simple architecture for you here. We'll just take a quick look before we get started. So we have 4 servers. The 2 important ones, I guess, the 2 most important ones are going to be called SQL 1 and SQL 2. And that's going to be our primary database server and our standby database server, respectively. They are connected by, or rather they're, you can say, overseen by our standby multi-platform solution. And the control center for that solution is on a 3rd server up here. So you can see that there's control and communication lines going to both SQL 1 and SQL 2. SQL 1 is going to replicate transaction logs over to SQL 2 to keep it up to date. So the database on SQL 1 is going to be in online mode. That's the primary database. The database over on SQL 2 is going to be in restoring mode. So cannot typically be connected to by any application until it's activated, until it's brought online. And then last but not least, we have our 4th server, which is going to be our application server, and that's going to have an active connection to the primary database, the production, right? So this is very much what you would expect in a typical everyday production environment. And what we're going to be trying to showcase here is what happens when the primary database and the primary database server, so SQL 1 over here, is no longer available. So we're going to need to do 2 things. We're going to need to fail over to the standby, to SQL 2, bring that online, and then we're going to have to repoint our application server. So go from this active connection, assume it's now broken, and activate this failover connection. So to start off, I've just got a little demo application here. Some of you might recall that back in the day, Northwind was the name of Microsoft's kind of default demo database. So that's what I've just built a little application here to showcase what we're doing. I'll refresh this page to see that we're all up to speed. So you can see that currently we are connected to the primary, which is on this port here. And all of this data that you're seeing here is drawn directly out of the database, which is also called Northwind. So once again, this database is currently on the primary side. So I'll show you what it looks like if we were to repoint the application right now. So this is my little kind of for demo purposes, my IP and routing definition file. So in the real world, this could be either a DNS setting, it could be a connection string setting for the database itself, just as I have here. But either way, in order to switch over the database, you will be repointing something like this. So in our case, as you can see here, SQL 1 is on 11433 and SQL 2 is on 21433. So we are currently connected to the first one, as you can see here. This is the connection string in use. So if I just switch over the database to the standby side now and refresh this page, you'll see that there's an error because at the moment there isn't even a database there, right? So obviously the application would fail. Let's restore that back to point to primary. Give this a couple of seconds to propagate. There we go. So we're connected to primary and everything is good. So in order to, as part of the implementation of our standby MP software for SQL Server, what you would do is you would create a configuration. I have pre-created it here. It's for the Northwind database. It's between SQL 1 and SQL 2, as you can see here. you can see that the database on SQL 1 is online, and on SQL 2 there isn't one yet. So as a first step, let's create that now. Click our handy link here. As always, if you don't know what any of these parameters do, or you have no special need to change any of them, we at DBVisit always provide you defaults for everything. You can basically just scroll to the bottom and click Start. To get a task going, this completed very quickly because the database in question is very small. So as you can see now, we now have a working database disaster recovery configuration here. There's a database on SQL 2, it's in restoring mode, and this is the time gap since the last update. So again, in the real world, you would be replicating maybe once a minute or so and keeping your standby up to date. So if your primary was to go down, let's simulate that now by bringing it offline. So I can go in here and into change database state. I can select primary, and I can say take offline, right? So I'll click this button. And as you can see here, this database is now offline. If we were to go back to our application and refresh the page, it's down because the database is down. Oh no! So let's now simulate a failover. If I go back to our configuration, select it, I will choose to activate the standby. It's a one-click activation. Yes, we want to do that. And as you can see, we have now switched. So previously we were SQL 1 to SQL 2. This configuration has been switched over, and it is now SQL 2 is now the primary, and it's been brought online. So all I have to do now, so that's the database switchover complete. So the second part of that is I can now go back to my file, and I can now repoint the application to use this, what was previously the standby database, the secondary database at the second IP address. Change this configuration, save the file, and if we go back to our application and refresh the page, you can see that we are now successfully connected to the standby on the new port. It really is as easy as that. Now, just to make your life even easier, what we actually have is if I go and create a new configuration for another database, I'll be able to show you. So we'll go back to SQL Server. We'll select another database that we have on our connected instances. Select this one. And we will quickly create the configuration for it. It's just going to take a moment. As always, you can click on any actively running task to see what steps our software is taking and in what order. So we now have a standby database for this second configuration. If we just go back to the activation screen again, you might notice this little link here that says optional add user scripts. Now, if I click that, what that will allow me to do is it will allow me to select a file, any file that you are welcome to pre-prepare, either on your primary side or your standby side, or indeed both. And what you could put in here is a very, very simple one-line script to automate the application repointing, right? So you could create a script on your standby side, for example, your standby database side. And all that script would do is it would do a remote SSH command into the application server, and it would do this one-line change that I've just been doing manually for demo purposes. So, just change the connection string from 1 to 2 here. And this action, this optional user script action, it's always taken at the end of the database action. So in this instance, you would hit activate just as we've done before. The activation of the database would complete successfully. And as a last step to this database activation, your script would fire, automatically repoint the application. And so the application would be using the standby database the moment that it's available. Either way, as you can see, it's pretty easy. You click one button to switch over the database, and then just change one connection string setting or DNS setting to repoint your application. And that's all there is to it.